Gerard, afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. So we've got here the bodies of 5 women found between now and March. Is it too soon to say or even worry that it's the work of one person or a single group?
Well, I think the responsible thing to do, one of our warning signs that we actually have a serial is two important things. Firstly, you have a number of bodies being found in a similar geographical area, which is what we have here. And of course, you might get alerted by a DNA link between different cases or a forensic link. So whenever we typically do find a number of bodies at the same time in a certain area or over a period of time, the responsible thing to do is treat it as a serial until you have information otherwise. And I do believe people from my old unit are involved in assisting the investigators. So if it turns out that it's not, that's fine. The cases would have anyway just had extra effort put into them. And of course, if it turns out forensically to confirm that they are, then of course you're one step ahead with your investigation.
And you've of course worked in this space for a number of years. I'm wondering about South Africa's history of serial killings, of course, with the caution that we're not saying that what's going on in Mthwalume is a serial killing spree, if we can put it that way.
Yeah, look, I mean, South Africa, we're one of the few countries that actually have very good ability to keep track of how many serials we have, because we have one national police service, as opposed to the United States, which has 17,000 independent, separate police agencies. So we have one police service that makes it easier to pick up and link these cases. We have one DNA database. We have my old unit that is involved in training detectives and advising on these cases. So as a result of that, we actually have fairly accurate stats, which, again, because other countries don't, might make us look like we have a lot. I recall in my time in SAPS, we probably were picking up about 10 new murder series a year. So probably by now, when I left, it was about 160. So we probably are on about 200 different murder series over modern South African history where we have had serial murderers. But at the same time, that has meant that we've built up a very good level of experience in actually dealing with these types of cases.
And how does one go about investigating a case such as this, where you've got 5 bodies dumped in a veld at different periods of time over, 6 months now, a 6-month period, piecing that together when, like you're saying, we haven't heard any news of possibly a DNA lead, for example?
And one might never have. And in many cases we didn't have, but we used other methods to treat it as a serial and get an arrest and get convictions. So DNA and forensic leads are very important, but they're not the key essential issue. So of course, without giving any tips away to this suspect or other suspects, one of the starting points would be to try and identify the victims, their last whereabouts, where were they moving around to, who might they have come in contact with. So that's going to be a key element in any serial investigation and any murder investigation for that matter.
Residents, I was reading earlier, saying that what they want to see now is more visible policing in the area. How sharp is that as an instrument of trying to stop a spate of killings?
Yes, I think one has to do that. But these suspects will go quiet, they'll relocate, they'll wait until the hubbub is calmed down and it's safe to act again. I do think one thing that the residents can definitely do, and probably this is what this guy is doing in this case, because we've seen it with so many other of our serials, is that he's offering them employment. That's just almost a stock standard way that suspects might approach victims. So, of course, not making sure that you're not going anywhere with a stranger, which sounds kind of logical, good advice anyway, and just being aware of your surroundings, beware when you're traveling at night, make sure you're with other people, is probably going to be your key. The easiest thing you can do to actually avoid becoming the victim of such an individual. And
again, without giving away too much to any potential criminals, because you never know what they're watching, a key part of that as well is looking into the behavior or the trends on the side of the attacker, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so again, what the police will be doing is trying to piece together the modus operandi, the causes of death, and of course there your forensic pathologists are going to be essential in helping us piece that together. So even if the bodies are fairly decomposed, there's still a lot of great, amazing forensic work that we and the Department of Health and different universities have the ability to really understand what happened to this victim in their dying moments.
You touched on this slightly at the beginning of our conversation, and perhaps I can phrase it differently and ask you about the possibility with our crime rate that this could very well be multiple killers who've killed these 5 women that have been found so far, because sadly in South Africa murders aren't uncommon. There's also the worry of copycat killings possibly.
True. Well, we've never really had a copycat killing in the sense of there's a serial murderer active and some other person decides to join in on the fun, so to speak. So we've luckily never had that. We've had here and there where somebody has killed their domestic partner and tried to make it look like it's part of a series. That's happened in KZN, actually. We do know in KZN province, the sugarcane fields is kind of the typical place where our serial murderers would leave their bodies. But even if it does turn out to be the work of 5 separate murderers, these cases currently are going to get a lot more attention than they probably would have got if they were left as individual cases. So there will never be any harm in treating something as a serial prematurely. And we used to do that quite commonly. We would cast our nets very wide in a geographical area looking for any possible case that could be similar. And as time went by, exclude those ones that we didn't feel or there was forensically confirmed not to be part of the series, till you're kind of left with the 1 or 2 or 3 that you are very certain are the work of that particular offender.
Gerard Labuskaghni, former SAPS Investigative Psychology Unit Head, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.